Hi guys, this is my audience. Okay. Does your heart start racing when you see a person you're attracted to? Has someone made you feel warm? And have you ever been in love? In this speech, you will learn the 5 points of falling in love, and how love modifies our brains, and how to induce changes in our central nervous system. I have been studying psychology for 2 semesters, and I have done my research thoroughly. Today, we'll be going deep in our brains and figure out what happens when we are in love. And can the great feeling of euphoria be similar to the feeling of being on drugs? Knowing that life for young adults loses its provisional nature is essential. This means that they know that there are characteristics that have consequences, and that the development of the behavior must be projected through life and not within a couple years. According to Erik Erikson, young adults face intimacy versus isolation, where the great task is to be able to commit to another. Morality gives a sense of justice, which depends on a cognitive development that implies overcoming egocentric thinking and growing ability to think abstractly. In love, there are 5 points: the romantic love, erotic, philia, dependent, and altruistic love. Romantic love is expressed through tenderness or support, and then erotic love is where sexual attraction, sex, and love are interdependent and characterized by intense feelings. Filial love is based on company or common interests. Dependent love dependence is a need to be together, although in extreme cases it can become oppression or neurotic behavior. Altruistic love in which interest or concern is genuine, as well as giving and receiving are together coexistence. Romantic love is one phenomenon that has inspired many philosophers and has been the central theme of many movies and novels. Although its complexity causes great difficulties when studying it, everyone has experienced this strong feeling at some point of their lives that directs all our senses and drives us to be with the person we love. Recent researchers concludes that love is a drive and a motivation rather than an emotion. It makes us feel that we are on top, but it could also lead us to self-destruction if we don't know how to manage a heartbreak correctly. Without a doubt, the psychology of love is an interesting topic. The psychology of love and its relationship with drugs. So until a few years ago, love was treated as an emotion, but despite the facts that it may seem so at specific moments, it has many characteristics that are different now. As a result of these studies of Helen Fisher, and a biologist and a researcher of human behavior, the scientific community gave more weight to the ideas that love is an impulse and the motivation, since the results of her research confirmed that they activated two important areas related to motivating behaviors: the caudate nucleus and the ventral tegmental area. Both regions highly innervated by the dopaminergic neurons and related to the repetition of pleasurable behaviors such as sex and drugs. But the complexity of love is not limited to those 2 areas of the brain. There's 12 areas of the brains are activated that work together and release chemicals such as dopamine, oxytocin, vasopressin, norepinephrine, and also serotonin. Love modifies our brains, and induces changes in our central nervous system. It activates biochemical process that begins in the cortex, gives rise to intense psychological response, and produces a great feeling of euphoria, similar to the drugs such as cocaine. Although it also has an effect on the intellectual areas of the brain and can affect our thoughts. In other words, when we are in love, we are high. We are high. The same research found that depending on the different types of love, different areas related to the reward system, and some higher cognitive functions are activated. The most important hormones of the neurotransmitters involved the process of falling in love are the phenethylamine, known as the love molecule, and when we fall in love, this substance floods our brains. It produces an uplifting effect and the feeling of being on the clouds. And then we have noradrenaline, which is catecholamine that greatly influences mood, motivation, attention focus, and sexual behavior. And we have adrenaline, similar to the non-adrenaline in both structures and functions. From a functional point of view, there's no difference, but between the two, pretty much, except that the function of the adrenaline is predominantly outside the central nervous system. Dopamine is the primary neurotransmitter related to the pleasurable behavior and their repetition, and it's intensive in the consumption of drugs and their addiction in gambling, love, and falling in love. Serotonin, known as the happiness hormone, and the elevated levels of this substance are associated with positive moods, optimism, good humor, and sociability. Researchers have shown that in a heartbreak there is a great decrease in this neurotransmitter, which can lead to a person to obsession and even depression. Oxytocin pretty much is also called the hugging hormone, and creates a close bond with a couple, and it helps to forge permanent bonds between lovers after the first wave of emotion and by hugging. And then by hugging, also kissing and making love. We favor releasing this substance. Vasopressin, known as the monogamy hormone, is also present. It also presents an attachment between a mother and a child. It is released with proximity and also touch. So love has to do with beliefs and values. And falling in love is a series of chemical reactions produced in different brain regions that make us have an idyllic perception of a person. However, Epstein says that the older people have a child brain sometimes. Okay, let me rephrase this one more time. The older people past the age of childbearing sometimes have partners for more practical reasons, which suggests that over the years we have educated ourselves to have a much more realistic vision of what it means to have a partner. And in conclusion, you have been informed about the strongest basic psychological needs. You now know what goes down when we fall in love, and my memorable ending is a quote by Erich Fromm. It says, "In love, the paradox occurs that two beings that two beings become one and yet remain two. Thank you.